In San Carlos de Bariloche, Argentina, we meet Graciela, a 19-year-old with fair skin, black hair, and light eyes. Graciela is a young tourism student at the university, supported by her family, her parents Carlos and Sylvia, and she has a younger sister named Rosa. Graciela's family is very close-knit, and the sisters have a great relationship. She is a dedicated student, and at university, she meets another student who starts flirting with her, named Daniel. Daniel is a very dedicated business student, 21 years old, handsome and charming, with dark skin and green eyes. It didn't take long for Daniel to start flirting with Graciela. At first, she rejected his advances, but Daniel was persistent and very manipulative. Through various conversations, Graciela confessed that she had had 4 boyfriends in the past but never had a serious relationship with any of them. Even though Graciela had had previous relationships, they were only flings or brief infatuations. Daniel felt a bit envious knowing Graciela had past relationships, but unlike her, Daniel wanted to try something serious. Initially, he did his best to contain these feelings, preferring to stick to his routine and focus on his studies, although from time to time, these libertine desires crept into his mind. Despite his confusion about being Graciela's first serious relationship, he thought there should be a balance between them. As Daniel and Graciela started their relationship, it was very different from what Graciela had experienced before. Daniel was orphaned, but he was raised by his uncles, who adopted him, and he had cousins whom he saw as siblings. Both Daniel and Graciela were focused on their studies and gave it their all. Their relationship was going wonderfully. Daniel graduated first and soon started working, and a year later, Graciela also graduated in tourism and they both began working in their respective fields. Daniel worked as an administrator in a Korean appliance company, and Graciela worked in a tourism company, and they lived well. However, a week before their wedding, Daniel curiously asked, "Love, what would you think if one day we were curious about opening our relationship?" Graciela, very intrigued but serious, responded, "If someone proposed something like that to me, I would file for divorce immediately and leave without a word. Even though I've had 4 relationships, I never stayed with any of them. I am a one-man woman." Daniel then said it was just an April Fool's joke and that he would never do something like that, but inside, Daniel was sad to know that his girlfriend was cutting off the possibility of experiencing other relationships without guilt or consequences. Daniel just wanted to enjoy what he thought was something different. Graciela decided to take it easy and believed it was nothing serious because she was truly in love with Daniel and thought it was a joke. However, Daniel was not satisfied. After the wedding week, Daniel and Graciela went to the altar and made their vows. Both families were happy and wished the couple the best. During their honeymoon, Daniel enjoyed every moment of their intimate beginning. Daniel and Graciela did not have children due to their work commitments, but the couple enjoyed their marriage. 2 years into their relationship, things were going smoothly between them. At Daniel's company, a new head of administration replaced the previous boss, a beautiful blonde woman with blue eyes and a stunning figure named Sabrina. Daniel was captivated by this beautiful woman, and they maintained a professional relationship at work, but it wasn't long before Daniel's unholy desires began to manifest, and Sabrina also started flirting with him. The man, who was not made of iron, soon gave in. Sabrina told Daniel, "Why don't you encourage your wife to accept an open relationship? It's much better than doing something behind her back." Daniel, excited, said, "You're right. I'm a man, and I have my needs. I'll convince Graciela to accept. If she loves me, she'll agree." Daniel and Sabrina went to a restaurant, and after dinner, they went to a hotel. Without any scruples, they ended up having sex. The next morning, Daniel and Sabrina were on cloud 9 and kept their affair a secret. Daniel wanted these experiences to feel like a man. The next day, believing he could manipulate Graciela and thinking she loved him and would accept opening their marriage, Daniel had no idea this would be the final nail in the coffin and the end of their relationship. Sabrina continued filling Daniel's head, and he began having affairs with several women, feeling like a man. One day, gathering all his courage, Daniel excitedly talked to Graciela, who also said she had great news. Smiling, Daniel decided to speak first and said, "Love, I want to be honest. I want us to open our marriage and allow my needs to be fulfilled." And the smile disappeared from Graciela's face, replaced by a cold and apathetic expression. Graciela said seriously, "Listen. Where are you trying to go with this? We've been married for 2 years, and now you want to try something strange? Does this seem interesting to you?" Daniel said he felt inferior for having only one experience. He admitted that he had met a woman at his company and slept with her. Daniel expressed feeling completely frustrated with having only one woman in his life, Graciela, and wanted to balance things out. He revealed that he wanted to be desired and pursued by other women. Since Graciela had past relationships, why couldn't he? Daniel, influenced by Sabrina, his boss who gave terrible advice and was also one of his lovers, firmly stated, "I just want you to know that I have to do this. I would love your support. I don't think I can live with the fact that you have much more experience than I do. It makes me feel like you had to settle for me. I don't want to be a man who settles. I want to be desired and adored by other women, just like you were by other men before you met me. I don't think I can be happy if I don't do this. Let's open our marriage." The beautiful smile Daniel had seen on Graciela's face vanished. He didn't care because he had already made up his mind and saw a look of defeat on Graciela's face. After a while, she went to her room. After this blow, Graciela stayed there for a bit. At that moment, Daniel said, "I've told you what I want. Now you can tell me what you wanted to say." "Love, now I'm listening." Graciela then said, "It's nothing, Daniel. I'm tired. It's something from work, nothing major." Daniel stayed, insisting that it wasn't a permanent thing, just a passing phase. Graciela was not a woman who expressed her emotions, so it was impossible to know what she was planning, only a smile on her face defined her. The next day, without hesitation, Daniel went to the arms of his boss, Sabrina, and felt like the king of the universe, enjoying the attention of a woman who wasn't Graciela. Little did Daniel know that he was digging the grave where he would bury his marriage. He went out with his co-workers, had fun in clubs, and hooked up with different women. Graciela endured this for 3 months but was secretly planning her revenge. Graciela was not a woman of many words, she acted, and she decided to act in the shadows to make Daniel bitterly regret his actions. Graciela would make him pay with interest and penalties. One day, Sabrina went to Daniel's house to pick him up for work. Daniel was in the shower when he saw his wife and Sabrina talking, looking like two friends. It seemed strange to Daniel, even amusing. He decided to see what they were talking about. As Daniel was getting dressed, Graciela sarcastically said to Sabrina, "So you're the woman who sleeps with my husband while I make breakfast?" Sabrina, also speaking nonchalantly, replied, "Yes. I'm the one who brought a little more excitement to your relationship." Daniel added, "Yes, love. She's the woman who told you. You two could be friends." Graciela politely bid them farewell and even opened the car door for Sabrina so Daniel could get in, then she said goodbye. On the way, both Daniel and Sabrina joked around, and Daniel believed his wife was taking the open marriage concept humorously. Sabrina, teasingly, said to Daniel, "Your wife is really funny and understands the open relationship. We could even do it in front of her. What do you think?" Excited, Daniel replied, "Of course. I think it's fantastic, and she'll love it." And for a week, Daniel had fun with his boss and thought Graciela was just joking around too. But it didn't take long for Daniel to see the consequences. Daniel was with several women besides Sabrina, enjoying all types of women that came his way. He felt like a teenager, turning into a real wanderer. For 3 months, Daniel had fun with various women and his boss Sabrina. But one Saturday, Daniel noticed that Graciela wasn't at home, and the silence bothered him. He noticed the radio was off, even though Graciela always played her favorite music at a high volume, even amidst these so-called adventures. Daniel went to his private gym in the house and saw that his wife wasn't there. He went to the bedroom and saw that her suitcases and clothes were gone from the closet, leaving only his personal belongings. Thinking Graciela had made breakfast, Daniel went to the kitchen but saw that nothing had been prepared. The silence was increasingly bothering Daniel. He searched the entire house and couldn't find her, but when he returned to the kitchen, he noticed a letter under a drawer. Daniel was deeply shocked to see the letter and was afraid to open it. Shaking, he found Graciela's wedding ring inside the drawer. Seeing the ring made his world start to crumble, so he decided to reluctantly open the letter. The contents of the letter would mark the end of everything he cared about. The letter read, "Hello, dear Daniel. You know I'm a person of action, not words. I hope you've had fun with your lover Sabrina and all the other women you have around. You, with your talk of wanting to be with various women. You've lost the only woman who truly loved you. Soon, everyone will know what you've done. I've investigated and know about all your affairs. By the time you read this letter, I will be in England. Yes, my travel company has decided to invest in me, and you were supposed to come with me. My company was even considering giving you a job. My parents and sister know everything you've done, and I won't lie, I don't wish you well. You've thrown our marriage away and are not worth the pain you've caused me these past months with your affairs. When you said that, I thought it was a joke. But when I saw your boss come to our house, that was the last straw. Now you have to deal with the consequences of your foolish and naive behavior. You thought I was a fool, but I pretended to be one just to see where you were going with this. Our marriage ends here. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten your infidelity. I regret ever meeting you. When I return from this trip, we'll start our divorce, and you can play around as much as you want. Only a weak woman without self-respect and firmness of purpose would accept the immorality you proposed. My love for you died that day. I hope it was worth it to have fun with Sabrina's toy and the others in your collection. I'll be in England for the next 5 years. This is the end. Goodbye." When Daniel saw that letter, his world fell apart. Inside the letter, he found a plane ticket meant for him, realizing in the worst way what he had done. Daniel, who only wanted to have fun and gain new experiences, didn't understand how much he had hurt Graciela. Now, it was all becoming clear. Daniel cried in that house and didn't sleep the entire night. On Sunday, his sister-in-law, Rosa, came to the house just to collect Graciela's belongings. Along with 2 friends, Rosa took all of Graciela's possessions, her jewelry, the rest of her clothes, personal items, perfumes, and other things. Rosa noticed that Daniel was wearing the same clothes he had worn when he arrived from work on Friday. Daniel asked Rosa to leave him at least a cap, a teddy bear, and Graciela's favorite perfume as memories of her. Out of kindness, Rosa allowed him to keep these items for that day, but she took them the next day, leaving Daniel even more devastated and sad as he watched his beloved's belongings being taken away. Rosa, who wasn't one to hold back, told her brother-in-law, "Graciela told me everything you did. You are a disgrace to all men. And I hope your life ends up like this room, empty and sad." Rosa had no mercy and expressed everything she thought, cleansing her sister's soul. She added, "I should spit in your face. But you're not worth the saliva. Just seeing you in this misery is punishment enough." Rosa left the house, taking her sister's belongings with her. Daniel was practically hitting rock bottom. He tried to seek solace with other women that same day, but it offered little comfort. He began to feel the consequences of his actions. The next day at work, he spoke with Sabrina, who nervously told him, "They're transferring me to another company. Your wife's parents and sister came here and talked about our relationship, and the president told me to transfer. I advise you to end this relationship and fix things with your wife. I'm leaving." And Sabrina didn't realize it was already too late to solve this problem. The new boss who replaced the previous one was much stricter and scrutinized Daniel's behavior. It didn't take long for Daniel to be fired from the company due to the rumors. Soon, he noticed his friends started distancing themselves, and his uncles and cousins disowned him. Rosa had gone to his house and told them everything, showing proof. Daniel's uncles didn't want to be associated with a promiscuous young man willing to throw his marriage away for the sake of sleeping with other women. His subsequent relationships didn't last more than 2 months. When the story came out that Daniel was an adventurer who cheated on his wife and slept around, any love those women had for him quickly vanished. Daniel was more alone than ever and had to make do with low-paying part-time jobs. He still lived in the house he bought for Graciela. The empty rooms remained as she had left them, and he kept the letter and plane ticket as reminders that he had let go of something beautiful for a fling. He was disappointed in himself for wanting more relationships. While he recognized many of his mistakes, letting Graciela go without a fight was the worst of them. Years passed, as Graciela had said, and Daniel even thought about looking for his former in-laws and Rosa. However, he found out they had gone to England for some reason. He waited for them to return to try and talk to them. When his former in-laws and Rosa finally came back, they were cold towards him and said nothing about Graciela. They asked Daniel to stop questioning them about their daughter's whereabouts. As Daniel tried to speak with his in-laws to learn about Graciela, Sylvia, Graciela's mother and Daniel's former mother-in-law, told him, "My daughter is doing very well in England. She doesn't want to see or talk to you." Carlos added, "You threw your marriage and my daughter's life in the trash for your adventures. You've lost all the respect we ever had for you, Daniel. Now go and stop looking for my daughter." Carlos and Sylvia were very rude to Daniel, and rightly so, because in one day, he destroyed all the expectations they had of him. Daniel felt miserable and continued living in that house, keeping everything intact, hoping Graciela would return, forgive him, and try to rebuild everything he had lost. Over time, he managed to get the forgiveness of his uncles and cousins, which provided him with some comfort. 3 years passed, and one unexpected day, Daniel decided to visit his ex-in-laws again, still hoping for news about Graciela. He saw something very unexpected in front of their house, a blond guy with brown eyes, an athletic, well-defined body, and 2 kids who looked very much like him, having fun with Carlos, who seemed very enthusiastic about the children who were at least 2 years old. When Daniel saw his father-in-law, the foreign-looking blond guy asked who the man at the door was. Carlos quickly tried to play it off with Daniel, but he had already explained to the foreign guy who Daniel was. Daniel insistently asked, "Carlos, who is this guy and these kids?" Carlos nervously responded, "That guy is a distant nephew of mine, and the kids are my great-nephews." "Daniel, they're distant relatives, and it's none of your business." Carlos asked Daniel to leave him and his family alone. Daniel noticed the nervousness on his ex-father-in-law's face but was too sad to press further. Over time, Daniel clung to the dead hope of getting back with Graciela and rebuilding his life, but he couldn't imagine it would take 10 years for Graciela to come back into his life. And he couldn't imagine the bombshell that would come with her. Years passed with no news from Graciela, not a letter, not a call, not a return to Argentina, absolutely nothing. Daniel was trapped in a limbo of remorse, regret, and doubts about why he had acted the way he did, questioning whether it was worth trading a solid marriage for a life of adventures and relationships with multiple women just to feel like a man. Daniel felt like a complete loser, not even seeking therapy. Later, he saw that Carlos and Sylvia's business was thriving, and they were living a comfortable, good life. He tried to approach his ex-in-laws and ex-sister-in-law, but they ignored him. But in the 10th year, things changed. Daniel received something that would change his life. For the first time, someone called him, and when he heard the voice, Daniel, now a 36-year-old man, out of shape and emotionally shattered, heard Graciela's voice on the phone. Very emotional, Daniel said, "Graciela, my love. It's been so long. I haven't heard your voice in 10 years, and I want you to know that even after all these years, I still love you and couldn't move on. I understand everything I did now and would love to see you in person. Graciela, with a firm voice, replied on the phone, "Listen, Daniel. We can talk, but let me warn you, don't get your hopes up. I just want to talk and see what's new. That's all." Graciela and Daniel talked for exactly 2 hours, each recounting what had happened to them. Graciela explained that she had suffered from that distorted vision but often felt the urge to hit Daniel, though she had self-control. She also said she hadn't returned for the next 5 years because she really needed to overcome it and forget. In England, Graciela said it was like therapy for her. Graciela also mentioned that on that fateful day, she thought it was a joke, but when she saw he was serious, that was the end of their marriage. She couldn't forgive the infidelities and added that she never agreed with the crazy idea of an open marriage. She let him explore it to see how far he would go and show his true colors. When she saw he was serious and not backing down, that was the final nail in the coffin for her. Over the phone, Daniel cried at Graciela's words but said it was a harsh lesson he had learned. He had been with many women, but none were like Graciela. He said she should have stayed to help him, to correct his mistakes, to show him where he went wrong, instead of fleeing like a bird from a cage. He thought she was happy seeing him with other women and hadn't expected such a sudden disappearance. Daniel admitted that he initially blamed her for his suffering but was now willing to talk in person and resolve things peacefully. Graciela said she would be back in Argentina in a week, only to deliver the divorce papers and settle the situation. Daniel was hopeful about fixing things, and when Graciela returned to her home country and visited their old house, he was thrilled to see her again. She looked beautiful, like a runway model. Daniel let her explore the house, and she saw everything was just as she had left it. The closets were empty, her belongings were gone, and the letter and plane ticket to England were still in the same place. Without any intimacy, they decided to talk. Daniel mentioned things he hadn't said on the phone, such as his boss breaking up with him after their affair, losing his job, the loss of friends, and the rejection from everyone. He had reconciled with his uncles and cousins but was very unhappy. Finally, Daniel saw Graciela's true emotions during those 10 years of absence. She felt pity. Graciela only pitied what he had become. At that moment, Graciela delivered the final blow to Daniel. "So for this? You threw away 2 years of marriage to have 3 months of fun with your lovers. Believe me, you completely disappointed me, and that's why I have no regrets about leaving you. I took the opportunity life gave me with that trip, just like I'm taking the divorce papers to resolve this situation. You need to see that we have no chance of getting back together. I wouldn't want to be in the same room with you, that would risk my happiness. I've moved on, and I want you to meet someone." At that moment, right behind Graciela, people arrived who Daniel never imagined would change his life forever. It was his ex-in-laws, Carlos and Sylvia, his ex-sister-in-law, Rosa, and also that foreigner with 2 kids who looked exactly like him, each 7 years old. Daniel recognized that this blonde guy was the same one he had seen at Carlos's house. Sylvia asked her daughter Rosa to take the kids to another room because the topic was important, and the kids couldn't hear the conversation. Rosa obeyed her mother and took the kids to another corner of the house. Graciela then recounted everything that had happened to her in England, how she had met someone who changed her life and that she now wanted to make everything legal. At that moment, the blonde foreigner introduced himself and said his name was Henry Navarre, but they could just call him Navarre. Daniel realized that his ex-wife, despite being legally married to him, had moved on and met this foreigner, resulting in her getting pregnant and having these children who were the spitting image of their father. Navarre, though an English citizen, spoke perfect Spanish. Unlike Daniel, Navarre was a man of honor who had personally come from his homeland to resolve Graciela's issues with her ex-husband. Navarre explained his entire story to Daniel without holding back. He said he had met Graciela, knew she was a married woman and that she never hid it from him, but he had started courting her anyway. Navarre supposed he fell in love with Graciela at first sight, but she respectfully rejected his advances out of consideration for her husband. Navarre didn't try to force her to be with him because he was genuinely in love with her. Over time, Graciela confided in him about her life in Argentina, the suffering she had endured because of Daniel and his infidelities, hiding nothing. Navarre was very frank and direct with Daniel, saying that eventually, his advances paid off, and they started a romance. One night, they couldn't contain their feelings and ended up giving themselves to each other completely. When Graciela discovered she was pregnant with Navarre's child, she was terrified of being abandoned and even thought of returning to her homeland. But Navarre proved he wasn't a scoundrel and didn't abandon her. He was thrilled to know he was going to be a father and was even willing to marry Graciela that very day. However, because Graciela was still legally married to Daniel, and Navarre knew her union with her ex-husband was just a bad joke and a farce, they decided to have a stable relationship but wanted to marry properly. Graciela's parents learned about it through a phone call. Carlos and Sylvia were initially worried about Graciela's image, but when they saw Navarre hadn't abandoned their daughter, took care of their grandchildren, and wanted to marry Graciela, they were overjoyed. They already considered Navarre part of their family, and he was the one who had invested in their business, which is why it was prospering. And he remembered the day he visited his father-in-law and saw him with his children, and that's why Carlos had made up that lie so Daniel wouldn't know that Graciela, when she had a break from her work and contract, returned to Argentina to see her family, and that was when they told him everything. Graciela spoke perfect English and taught Spanish to her boyfriend Henry Navarre, who learned to speak Spanish with her. When Daniel found out what the foreigner had said, he sadly said to his father-in-law, "Mr. Carlos, did you know about this? Did you know that your daughter had formed a family with someone else behind my back? Why all this?" At that moment, Carlos retaliated against his ex-son-in-law, Daniel. "My daughter had the right to be happy, and Navarre showed with his actions how much he loves my daughter, and he even got a job for my other daughter Rosa. And yes, Daniel, that blonde guy is not my nephew, and the kids are not my grandchildren. They are my grandchildren, and I love them very much. You didn't appreciate my daughter. She has found someone who appreciates her." Sylvia added, "That's right, Daniel. The blonde guy is the father of my grandchildren, and no matter what you think, these kids have brought us joy. When you broke our daughter's heart." And at that moment, Navarre intervened for the first time in the conversation and said, "Yes. Graciela never hid from me that she was married, and I know you wanted her to accept an open marriage. In my country, this is frowned upon. Even more so in the Anglican Church of my homeland, which abhors it. Although there have been some cases in my country's history. I don't want you to blame Graciela. I decided to take this step, and I don't regret getting involved with Graciela. I took responsibility for my children, and I'm here in front of you to do things legally and without fighting. In my homeland, a king had the courage to fight for the love of an American commoner and even sacrificed his throne for her, and he knew she was married but unhappy in her marriage. Just like my beloved Graciela, who was married but sad and unhappy with your constant betrayals. Graciela never hid from me that she was a married woman and was honest with me from the beginning." In that confusing moment, Daniel said with a sad look, "Listen, Graciela. I know I have caused you suffering with this open marriage thing and all that. But you went and formed a family with someone else so quickly, and I still had hopes of trying to repair our marriage. This is very sad for me, and I regret to say that I have been the architect of all this." And Navarre intervened again, saying, "That's why Graciela and I are here. To resolve this issue. Sign the divorce papers so that Graciela and I can legally marry under the law and be happy together." Graciela then added, "That's right, Daniel. You were unfaithful to me and caused me pain, and I have no obligation to remain faithful when life has given me a true chance to be happy with real love. Don't forget, you're to blame for all of this. If anyone is to blame, it's yourself, and no one else here triggered this situation. I fulfilled my duty as a wife until that disgusting day I want to erase from my life." Daniel's heart broke even more at Graciella's words, and in that moment, with a broken voice, he said, "Graciella, I am so sorry for everything I've done to you. It's tragic, and I acknowledge that I am at fault for all of this. And you, Henry Navarre. How could you get involved with a married woman and continue to have children with her? I admit I have no moral ground to stand on to judge you. But all of this has blindsided me, and now I'm even more shattered, and my last hope of reconciliation has vanished." Navarre intervened again and said to Daniel, "I'm sorry your marriage ended this way. But I love Graciella, and I want to spend the rest of my life with her, raising our children together with the help of my in-laws, whom I've already seen are wonderful people. We will compensate you financially and even offer you therapy to help you move on from all of this. But your marriage is beyond salvage, it's futile to fight for what's already dead." After much discussion and realization that he was responsible for all of this, that his ex-wife had already formed a family with another man, Daniel saw there was no reason to continue. Humbly, Daniel said, "Truly, Graciella, I have no one to blame but myself. You deserve to be happy and move forward. I hope you raise your children well, and I wish you and your new husband all the best." Daniel, very sadly, signed the divorce papers, and as promised, Navarre paid a sum of £10,000, which later converted to exactly 11,457,600 Argentine pesos. Soon, they helped Daniel with therapy, and he decided to turn his life around. Determined to change his fate, he acknowledged that he had lost Graciella forever, but his ex-wife deserved happiness. Less than a month later, Carlos, Sylvia, Rosa, Navarre, and Graciella along with their children returned to England, and 2 months after that, they were married in the traditions of the Anglican Church of England. This brought happiness to Carlos and Sylvia, and Navarre and Graciella's children were also happy with their parents' marriage. Additionally, Rosa soon met a British citizen who fell in love with her, and they began a romance, making plans for their own wedding. As for Daniel, he underwent individual therapy to recover from his losses and to learn from the mistakes of his past. Daniel never remarried or had children, remaining single as a sort of self-punishment for his past mistakes, although Graciella encouraged him to move forward, just as she had. Things gradually improved for Daniel, but he still regretted losing Graciella due to his adventures, yet he wished her happiness with her new love and hoped everything would go well for her. Moral of the story: play foolish games and you'll end up winning foolish prizes. Hurting someone and trying to justify something wrong has its consequences. Not everyone will agree with a distorted view of things because life and destiny have established rules. If you violate the natural laws of life and destiny, the consequences of your choices will come to light when you least expect it. Life and destiny will show no mercy to those who choose the wrong path, and the right path will always be the best one.